Wildman Z here with awesome comic book review. This is one of my favorite comics of all time. This is Uncanny X-Men number 137, going back to 1980 when I was about 13 years old, 12, 13, I guess. We're at the climax of Dark Phoenix Saga, which in a nutshell it's hard to encapsulate succinctly, but basically, Jean Grey, original founding member of the X-Men, along with Scott Summers here on the cover. Jean, in the early 100s of the X-Men, shortly after the new team formed, she stayed on. She was inundated with the power of the Phoenix Force. It's sort of a primal cosmic force, sort of mythological, as you see in some of the Near Eastern myths of this very powerful reincarnative type of entity. Her power levels go through the roof. She goes from being normal telepath with some TK powers that are impressive but not super impressive to being uber powerful. She can materialize objects. She can fly through space. She can put power bolts through mountains. She can supernova a sun. She can do all sorts of things. And basically what happens is in the storyline is both from where it's implied that from her acquisition of such power and also from the tampering of a character by the name of Jason Weingard, a.k.a. Mastermind, an original member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, old-time nemesis of the X-Men. He psychically manipulated her for his own ends, but it backfired. It backfired on him, and he releases this being called the Dark Phoenix. The Dark Phoenix has gone on a rampage. She's destroyed an alien world filled with sentient life. She's destroyed a Shi'ar battleship easily. And at the end of the last issue, just let me get it out here. At the end of the last issue, which I talked about last time, we find at the end of it, Professor X has managed to defeat her, I believe, because she's let down a little bit of her guard. Has inner turmoil. I believe that she allowed the Professor to defeat her. They leave it open interpretation. And right at the end of the pitched battle, he's put some sort of psychic dampening on her to limit her abilities. They're taken away by some sort of teleporting mechanism when we really don't know where, though it's implied by the Shi'ar. So this episode starts out here, 137, which is a nice double-sized issue, beautiful cover, with the Watcher, who's always a harbinger for usually a very important Marvel tale. He doesn't always just pop on up for every story. You're not going to see the Watcher when Spider-Man's fighting the Vulture for the ninth time, but something really big like Galactus coming to Earth or some sort of cosmic level battle, then the Watcher will show up to chronicle it. This is a great spread. If you get a nice, this is an original issue, but if you get a nice reprinted version in vibrant colors, boy, this thing is just spectacular. And I have several of them. I have an omnibus of this somewhere. And I believe in, not an epic, but a masterwork of it. And I rebuy these things just to look at them in a different format, maybe read some comments that are put in there by whoever put it together. And, just kind of relive it. Because, I read these once in a while, but the colors are fading and the lettering's kind of blurs out of time, and I keep them preserved, but not immaculately such. But look at this panel here. It's got all of the X-Men who are of the new team who are still on it. Colossus, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Storm, along with Scott and Jean. But also in there are the Beast and the Angel, which almost rounds out the original team. The only one missing from that is Iceman. I'm not sure where Iceman was at this point in time. I don't think he was on the Defenders or the Champions of Los Angeles. This is the Champions of Los Angeles had Iceman and Angel on it, but I think he's kind of in stasis at this point. I don't think he was really being utilized that much in comics. He was kind of the one guy who kind of got left behind when the Avengers, when the X-Men kind of transitioned. The Beast was on the Avengers, and the Angel was always popping up in Spider-Man and different comics, and he weaves his way back onto the team pretty soon after the new X-Men form, at least for some time. And then later on, he's back in X-Factor, and he becomes Archangel. But these panels are great. Basically, the Shi'ar, that's Lilandra, with the Gladiator behind her. She's the Empress of the Shi'ar Empire. She lets it known to a whole audience of aliens that Jean has committed these transgressions and she's going to have to pay the ultimate price. It's implied that she's going to kill Jean. And basically, at the last panel here, I thought it was the next page, but you'll see the professor making a little call out to her. He calls her out to some honor battle where they're going to face off against the Imperial Guard. He does not consult the X-Men. He just throws it out there for the life of Jean Grey, and he challenges basically to a duel, team against team. And so he's familiar with the ways of the Shi'ar, this galactic spanning empire, because the X-Men have had adventures with them before, and some of them were really good. And so he's also going off with them on his own, it's implied. And so he has an affair with Lilandra of the Shi'ar. They're on good terms. They're lovers, but she puts her empire first, as she should. She consults with some of her allies about this duel. There's the lettuce head is the Kree Supreme Intelligence. That's when you know biotech is going to go wrong in the future. And there, the lizard woman there is Skrull Empress, and I forget her name, but they're allied with or are subordinates to, I'm not sure, of the Shi'ar Empire, and they consult, and they basically say you can have your duel, but at the end of the day, she's got to go, she's got to lose, meaning die, and so she's too much of a threat. The next day, we go through the next couple pages. We just go through a whole bunch of scenes of the X-Men resting. They get one day of respite before the battle. Colossus getting out of bed. He's thinking like, wow, the professor threw us under a bus, kind of, but this is the life of Jean. Storm's reflecting on the same thing. One of the best panels here I really love is they show Jean, as they showed on the cover, she goes back to her Marvel Girl costume. That's actually not her original Marvel Girl costume, but somewhere in, I forgot, it was around issue 70 or so, once the original X-Men, they were teenagers, but once they went through a certain degree of training, the professor said, hey, you don't have to wear your standard uniform here. You can make your own costume. Gee, thanks, Professor. That's really cool. We're going to get a malt, at the malt shop or whatever, to celebrate. There was kind of, these old 60s comics kind of square and wacky, but that was her costume. And I always thought it was cool, the green and yellow motif on Jean. John Byrne is not really known for backgrounds. He's a really great character artist, but boy, he really knocks it out of the park with his rendition of the blue area of the moon. That's an area of our moon that's in the Marvelverse is inhabited by the Kree. I'm really waiting for us to go to the dark side of the moon. I'm a UFOologist. I'm really into UAPs and so forth, and I'm just so convinced we have bases of alien races or non-human intelligence on the moon, but I don't think it looks like this. I don't think this. But it's really groovy to think about what could be going on up there. But he really caps it beautifully. So they teleport the X-Men to the blue area of the moon, and they're going to face off against the Imperial Guard. Now, what happens is the Imperial Guard is they're going to be a new bunch of some of them are original Guards members they faced, but there's a whole bunch of new characters on there. It's like a military branch of the Shi'ar, and they face off like some weird characters. I didn't even know who some of these guys were. Here's this giant robot. I think his name is Chad or something like that. And he has a little guy in his back called something like Bani, Bazi, something like that. And, he's Colossus fighting this robot. And then this little guy jumps out. They're like, what the hell's that? And he, grabs the beast and he's, electrocutes him. And it's like they have all sorts of weird, high-powered beings. There's a whole bunch of them. Most of them have, flying apparatus, kind of like the Legion does in DC. Everybody flies through a mechanism one way or another. They have a character that's like an earthquake guy who faces off against Storm, and while she's defeating him, another one comes out of the back. I think her name is Husser. She's got a Neuro Whip, takes Storm out. So one by one, they get taken out, and the Angel gets taken out by the Smasher. Wolverine accidentally pops into the Watcher's Citadel. Watcher's like, you need to get out of here, Feral Man, and Wolverine's like, how he is. So he takes a little stroll through space and time. He's kind of whacked out. He's throwing his senses off. He's seeing dinosaurs and supernovas and all sorts of crazy stuff. When he pops on out of that Citadel, his senses are shaken, and Storm comes over. We know she's been taken out and ends up being a Skrull. Wolverine's about to toast his behind. He's going to slice and dice him. but the Kree comes out of nowhere. He's one of the Krees who's overseeing it. He's not supposed to be there, but they're watching out to make sure that the X-Men lose. He blasts Wolverine, and the Skrull finds it the ultimate offense and to be saved by a Kree, so he attacks him, and one of them must get taken out. I assume the Skrull did, but or the Kree did, rather. The X-Men lose. I think my favorite fight scene amongst them, it takes up 3 or 4 panels, is Colossus versus the Gladiator. Now, the Gladiator, he's a Superman level guy. He can pretty much do anything as long as his confidence stands up. He's not a bad guy. He's like the Praetor of the Shi'ar Empire. He's very loyal to Lilandra. He's a military type of guy. I don't know too much about his backstory. I don't know how he gets his powers, if he's a mutant or if it's inundated into him somehow. But he's very loyal. He's teamed up with some of Marvel's heroes in the past on adventures. Colossus is really strong. I always take it, when I was a kid, I always wondered who's strong. I never had that big Marvel book that had all the strength levels, but I always took a Colossus was not quite as strong as the Hulk, but probably as strong, if not stronger than the Thing. The thing about Colossus is that early on, even though he's got all the strength and vulnerability, he would armor up too slow, or he'd hesitate on hitting somebody. Oh, I don't want to hurt him, and then the guy would end up being really powerful and knock him through the roof. He didn't use his powers to the utmost. He wasn't a really honed fighter. He was kind of he had all the potential in the world to be the most powerful, with the exception of Phoenix, or the second most powerful next to Storm character on the team. But he was always getting taken out by some dude. Even Donald Pierce, I think, the Cyborg, took him out in earlier episodes. And so what happens is that they're fighting under some ancient structure, collapses, and there's a really touching panel here where you see in some sort of a bulb the image of magic ball type of thing, the image of Colossus being carried out of the rubble and his human guise by Gladiator. Professor realizes it's over. So it ends up being just Jean and Cyclops left at the end. They seek a little respite in a cave or something like that. And then what happens is basically they battle together against the remaining Imperial Guard of the Shi'ar. Pretty much all of them are left. Maybe 1 or 2 got taken out early on, but the vast majority of the team is left, including the Gladiator. It's a hopeless battle because Jean is just at a Marvel Girl level now. But then she suddenly sees Cyclops get taken out by a power bolt of some sort. They don't really emphasize it. He's just taken down, as you know he is. And she reverts back to the Phoenix. You see a force bolt come up and hit the Shi'ar ship. Lilandra and Professor both realize the shit has hit the fan, basically. And they summon the X-Men and the remaining Guard to try to take her out. I think pretty much the Guard gets wiped out in a fell swoop. So it's the X-Men fighting her, including Cyclops. Professor talking to him, he says, and psychically telling him, hey, look, we got to take her down. Wolverine throws Colossus at her. They call that a fastball special. It's kind of in reverse, though. Usually Colossus throws Wolverine. He pulls the punch. She's shaken up, and he's powerful. She's not fully at power yet. She's ramping on up, and she's teetering between light and dark. And so she kind of freezes everybody, including Cyclops, and she goes into a little cavern or some kind of cubby hole, and I don't know how she knows it's there. She probably picked somebody's brain, but she pulls up a Kree weapon and vaporizes herself. And that was one of the most shocking moments that I had experienced in comics. And it held true for quite some time that she was dead. I'm running out of time here, but we'll pick it up next time with her funeral and talk about some more aspects of the Dark Phoenix saga. Wildman Z out. Have a great day.